Welcome back, everyone, to another Adventure Box podcast. This is Zach Edwards with Historical Conquest. We are the group that's bringing you everything history in a chronological order, except there's one difference. Mondays and Wednesdays, it's all about the American Revolution, and that's actually right now. It's American history all throughout Mondays and Wednesdays. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have ancient civilizations. Right now, we're talking about I think we're just finishing up Mesopotamia, and then we're going to be going into Persia. So very exciting stuff. Glad you could be here for this week. Today, we're actually going to start off with the final steps of the Northern Campaign for the American Revolution. This is where the British have their strongholds, and the Continental Army is actually putting all their efforts towards the north. They're trying to get rid of the British out of the north. So there's certain things that are left over. Like last week, we talked about a lot of different battles that were going on up in the north, and how the Continental Army was winning, like time and time again. Now there were actually some setbacks. Of course, there's always setbacks, but this brings us up to the next battle in July 16th, 1779. This is the Battle of Stony Brook. This is a significant one. Okay, let me take you a little bit further back. Do you remember in 1775, it's right when Lexington and Concord was taken over, they had just surrounded Boston, trying to kick out the British from that city. During that time, they sent a few people, including Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold, up to take Fort Ticonderoga. That's a really hard word to say. Try to say it 10 times fast. Ticonderoga, Ticonderoga, Ticonderoga. Actually, it is doable. Okay, and that was just 3. Okay, now let's go to the Battle of Stony Brook. The Battle of Stony Brook was significant, just like Ticonderoga, because both of them were nighttime attacks. I don't know what it is with the British. Maybe they think because we're gentlemen, everyone else will be gentlemen and not fight while we're trying to sleep. I mean, I need my teddy bear and my blankie, and we need to sleep. And so we will battle you in the morning, sometime after the sun is up. Well, the Continental Army does not work that way. As we've already talked about, they are all about guerrilla warfare. They're about nighttime attacks. They're doing anything possible to get the British out of the colonies. And this is so important. This type of difference in tactics, war tactics, was why the British fell. If the British had actually learned different ways of fighting beyond the set up in a line and have different rows of soldiers, some could be infantry, some can be sharpshooters, and so forth, they were designed to meet on the battlefield. They were designed to meet and be able to attack, being able to look straight at your opponent. The problem was the American colonists were not like that at all. So what they did is they went for nighttime raid on the Battle of Stony Brook, in the Battle of Stony Brook. Now, Stony Brook, just so you know, it's a fortified British position. It was on the Hudson River, and it was a critical place for the British and also the colonists, because the Hudson River is where you bring supplies up and down. And the British did not want the colonists to come up and down that river. So, led by his actual name, or his nickname, was General Mad Anthony Wayne of the Continental Army, he planned on surprising the night attack. And he was going to go in during the night. Now, a lot of things can make a lot of noise. Whether it's your muskets, whether it's your rifles, whether it's the things that are on your personages. So they actually had to get the soldiers to try to get rid of anything that made noise, because they wanted to go in with stealth. They wanted to go in so the British didn't know that they were actually attacking or being attacked. So they created 2 flanks. Okay, so they had one flank that come from one side and another one that came from another side. Both came with unloaded muskets. And why was that? Again, anything to stop making the noise. They were relying completely on their bayonets. So if they were going to make a noise, if someone was going to shoot, it would wake up all the British, and they would have lost their battle. But under the cover of darkness, the Continental Army actually overwhelmed the British and within 25 minutes took over Stony Point. This is a full British camp set up to keep people from coming over the Hudson River, so down here. And so because of that, because they were able to take over, the victory boosted the Americans' morale, and they were able to learn from different complex maneuvers. Now, every time that a new complex maneuver was made, they passed it along, and everyone else would learn by that maneuver. So although the fort, Stony Brook, would later be abandoned by the colonists, it actually pushed the British out of that area. It led the supplies to run up and down the Hudson. It also pushed the British to leave the area. So where did they go? Another place that they went, and this was not exactly the same group, but the British, another emphasis, went to another place called the Battle of Newtown. So Newtown, this was actually part of Sullivan's expedition. Sullivan was a general with the help of James Clinton, and they led about 4,000 people, 4,000 men. Now, let's just see. Stony Brook is here, just above Long Island in New York, and they came all the way down here. So this is on the border of Pennsylvania and New Jersey and New York to a place called, what did we say? Newtown. They came into Newtown. Now, here's the thing. Newtown was not a battlefield per se. Newtown was a gathering place where they started their attacks. Now, let me give you a little bit of background. Yes, they had 4,000 troops. Yes, their objective was actually to take out the Iroquois nation, well, Confederacy. The reason for this is because the Iroquois were attacking all the frontiersmen. So anyone that had a settlement outside of the mainstream areas, the Iroquois were going in and killing. They would kill everyone there, destroy their houses, destroy their crops, everything. So, in return, General Sullivan actually said, well, he was given orders to go break the Iroquois. Now, this didn't really mean to go kill every Iroquois, but this did mean to break their spirits, to cripple them, basically. Cripple their ability to support the British, because a large portion of the Confederacy was actually helping the British. And so if they were going to really keep the British away and keep the Iroquois under control, that they weren't influencing the war, they had to cripple them. So they went in and they had orders to burn the crops, to destroy the resources, and to burn down the villages. Now, their distinct orders were not to actually kill the people as much as possible. So they wanted to go in, they wanted to burn everything, break their spirits. Yes, there were some Iroquois that died. No, they did not actually have the command to go kill all the Iroquois. So the Continental Army came in and started to push the Iroquois back. This is not actually just Iroquois. It was a combined effort between Iroquois warriors and British loyalists, led by Chief Joseph Brant and Colonel Butler. So the British and the British, those are loyalists. They were not actual well-trained professional soldiers. Loyalists and the Iroquois. And so this actually, they basically tried to set up a defensive position, but Sullivan's troops, again, were 4,000 men, and they went right through it. There wasn't enough of the Iroquois and the British to stop them. And by starting in Stony Brook, Newtown, they were able to start with small villages and slowly grow bigger. If they started off with a large village, it would have actually created multiple runners who would go out to all the other villages, and the other villages would be ready. They went through, and within a matter of days, they actually took out 40 villages. And basically a scorched earth effort after the attack the ambush at Newtown. So the Continental Army came in, attacked the British Loyalists and the Iroquois in Newtown. and then afterwards destroyed 40 villages in the matter of a few days. So the Battle of Newtown marked a larger engagement of Sullivan's expedition. This is like an expedition that's going out and burning all the villages. Newtown was actually just one of those. There's many other ones. But this also freed up American forces to focus more on the main theater, which was New York and then down in the south. Now, the New York was falling, so the next thing to do was to start focusing on the south. So let's go down a little bit down south to a place called Charleston. This is Charleston, South Carolina. Now, interesting enough with Charleston is there was actually some battles that were happening in the south, but until the British decided, you know what, we need to regroup, we need to go after something that we can actually get a handle on because we're losing up in the north. Let's get the Loyalists, who are all over the south, let's get the Loyalists to side with us and to help us defeat the colonists. So they sent the British down into Charleston. So think of it this way. Charleston is a city on a peninsula. They have ships in the harbor. The British came by sea to block off the ships, to sink some of the ships, to create a blockade. No supplies in, no supplies out. No soldiers in, no soldiers out. And they also came by land coming down south. This is General Cornwallis and his group. And actually, this was actually, before Cornwallis, it was General Sir Henry Clinton. Now, I know we just said General Clinton, or James Clinton, not related. At least, not directly related. So, in this attack against Charleston, they didn't have 4,000 people like Sullivan's expedition. No, they had 14,000. And the 14,000 besieged Charleston and took over the city, coming down into the peninsula. And by sea, they had the blockade with the British fleet, so they were able to take it. Now, for the Americans, they had 5,000 continental troops, but they were not prepared for the prolonged siege that would be caused by this attack by Sir Henry Clinton, General Clinton. Okay, so the British, they surround Charleston. Again, land and sea. They cut off the supplies, they cut off the reinforcements, and it takes them 6 weeks of basically lobbing cannonballs into Charleston, into the city, to get them to finally give up. So this is a point where they can't fight anymore. They have loyalists who had basically vacated Charleston, joined the British, and came back into Charleston. This was a devastating defeat. Charleston was one of the bigger cities in the South for the colonies. So the loss of Charleston to the British was a major blow to the American cause, to the morale. Over 5,000 soldiers were captured. Now that's continental soldiers were captured. And more were killed as well. This is more than any other battle that attacked, or that happened. 5,000 were captured. Remember, they started off, the colonists, with 5,000, and nearly 5,000 soldiers were captured. It's because they had nowhere to go. Charleston, again, was a peninsula. They could sail a boat across the river and try to get out, but that wasn't very likely because you probably had others that were on the sides. I actually don't know about that part. There probably was. And you had the British blocking their only escape by sea. So these 5,000 completely captured. This was a turning point for the South. The British now had control of South Carolina, the largest hub, the largest protected city in the South. So this again reignited the British morale, and the British thought that they could actually win. So what happened? This created the bigger campaign. This was the Southern Campaign. This is literally the most bloodiest campaign in all of American Revolution. Because the American Revolution fought in the North, fought in the South. The South is basically where the British became very desperate. Up in the North, it was basically an equal playing field. And it was against a non-trained, non-professional army that was the Continental Army. And now they're coming down south. Again, same thing, but they lost the north. So they're desperate to win. So the Southern campaign was full of something else. This was different. Now, we talked about guerrilla warfare, but we did not talk about Francis Marion, there you go, also by the name of Swamp Fox. This was a guy that lived in the South, was used to the bayous, the swamps, the forests. And so he used these tools, being the swamps, the trees, the forest, as a way of defeating the British. Brilliant, brilliant man. Not very well recognized. I mean, you wouldn't. If I said Francis Marion, you wouldn't know who I was talking about. If I said Swamp Fox, there's a potential that you know who I was talking about. But he's not given much credit. But it was his tactics and others. Sullivan did a lot of the same kind of tactics. Again, remember, when one group finds out that a tactic wins or that works, they send runners to let others know, try this. Let me teach you this. This is a way to get ahead of the British. Because the British, again, were not used to anything but battlefield battles. And if you're not on the battlefield, it's a totally different way of fighting. If you have a forest between you, you have Continental Army shooting straight through the forest as the British troops march through, they're going to get a lot more of their bullets through than some nerve-wracked British soldier who is just shot upon, who turns their guns into a forest where they can't even see the Continental Army. These are the types of things where the guerrilla warfare actually started to win out, again, in the South. So this is what kept the British on edge. Now, if the British had to move through an area that was very wooded, they were very nervous. So this is actually where the Iroquois or other native tribes would actually help. Now, they had that up in the north. They didn't really have that in the south because the Iroquois were up in the north. They did have smaller groups in the south, but not as much. And the Continental Army was very well trained in this area to do this type of warfare. So this is a great way of getting started in the Southern campaign. I'm going to tell you about one last battle, and this is again, when we were talking about New York, that was 1779. Again, remember, it started in 1775. 1779, north. Then we jumped down to Charleston. That was 1780. So that was like less than a year later, but it was the next year. Again, during the winter, you don't really attack much. Unless you're George Washington floating across the Hudson River and attacking, what was it, Trenton? Yeah, that was devastating to the British because they were not ready for that. They were not looking for that. And they were taking, it was taking control. Again, all these different tactics is how the colonists, the United States, what would become the United States Army, would win in their own land. All the people from the colonies were basically trained in the colonies to know their environment. The British were trained in European battles. So again, I don't want to stress that too much, but yeah, this was a devastating thing for the British because they were not used to this type of warfare. Now let's get to the battle. Okay, the Battle of Camden. This is a very important battle. This is actually, you could almost see this as almost a funny battle. Yet, of course, in war, nothing's really funny. Okay, so you've got two forces. You have General Horatio Gates. You remember him? Remember, he's called the hero of Saratoga, even though we already discussed this. It was Benedict Arnold that came in, even though he was reprimanded, sent to his tent. He broke command, and he led his troops into a decisive victory against the British. So he broke the rules, which is why he didn't really get the credit for it. But General Horatio Gates got it because it was actually his plans, and in the end, because he's leading it, he became the hero of Saratoga. So he actually takes command of the Southern Department of the Continental Army. He's sent down to the south. Now, during this time of traveling down there, between July 25th, 1780, and early August of 1780, this is about, 2-3 weeks, he's able to, as he comes down into the south, he he gathers about 4,000 men. These consist of continental regulars, untrained militia, and local troops. So these soldiers are poor equipped, they're untrained, and here's the bad thing, they're suffering exhaustion and illness at this point. So it's not looking good for Gates. So he makes this controversial decision. He's like, I'm going to attack the British head on. Now, Camden, let me bring this up. We're still in Charleston. Camden is a very important place. This is actually a stronghold of the British. So let's zoom out just a little bit, give you a little bit of understanding of, there's Camden, and over here's Charleston. Okay, Camden, oh, no, there you go, Charleston. So this is, as Horatio Gates is coming down to try to retake Charleston, he has to go through Camden. Now, he knows that Camden is where the British, their major force is. So they have this ability to take on the British head on. I think he's probably thinking, hey, I'm the hero of Saratoga, let's go for it. So he has all these people that are not in the best position to attack. So he comes from the north, comes into Camden. Now, the day before, he sets up camp. Well, the British, on the other hand, also have their own plans. So this is around August 15th, 1780. This is where Gates reaches what they call Rugulli's Mill. And this is about 13 miles north of Camden. So up here. Now, being 13 miles north of Camden, the British also know that he's coming. So this is where General Cornwallis comes in. Now, he's coming from the south. He comes in to fortify and to give them more support. So this brings the troops in this area to about 2,200. Again, remember, 4,000 to 2,200. But these are mostly trained, well-trained regulars. These are soldiers that are well-trained in their arts, including sharpshooting. So, just to make sure you understand this. So, they come in. Now, the British are already here. 13 miles above, here you go. There's the battlefield for them. So, they're just above here. They both decide, early morning, we're going to attack. And we're going to come pre-dawn. So, in the darkness. Again, the British, they do stuff like this before, but they're really realizing that they have to actually play from the same playbook as the Continental Army if they're going to win. So, we have Cornwallis comes up north. We have Gates coming down south. And they meet around here. This is the battlefield as it's being preserved. So, they come in, and around 5 a.m., they're both marching on the same road. That's right. They're marching on the same road towards each other. And then, unbeknownst to each other, I guess they didn't have scouts in front of them, they clash. They go straight for each other, not knowing each other are coming. This is why I said it's almost funny. It's like you both decide the same thing, and as you're coming down, you realize, oh crap, they're doing the same thing. So when you thought you were having the upper hand, the advantage, yeah, it doesn't really work out that best. So they actually are near a field, so they go out to the field. To the right, you have Horatio Gates and his not so well trained army. Now, there are skirmishes during this time as they're trying to get their troops in line and try to get them set up. But for the most part, they're not let alone, but they keep their distance, like the distance of shooting a rifle. But this is where this man is probably the most evil of all the British officers and Continental, probably the most evil of all. He's the butcher. That's how he's known. He's known as the butcher. He comes in. His name is Tarleton. Oh, crud. What's his last name? Oh, there it is. Okay. His name is Bannister Tarleton. Colonel Bannister Tarleton. He was someone that had not just a major ego, but he was, you got to learn, in the curriculum, you'll actually read about his story. But he has a large ego because of certain things that happen in his lifestyle. in his life. But it's certain battles that will turn him into a butcher. And I'm not going to go more into it. He had a garrison. He brought him down, was able to attack with them. Bring him up north with Cornwallis, and were able to flank the Continental regulars. So this is actually, so let's go through the formations. Okay, so he had Gates places an inexperienced militia to the left flank. So on the left, you have the inexperienced militia. That's opposite to the British right flank. The British come up with a right flank, and that's commanded by Tarleton. So Gates versus Tarleton. The Continental regulars hold a center flank, so they come in from the center, came in from the north into the center between the two. Okay, now the British formation, you have Cornwallis, who now positions his people. Again, he's coming up from behind Tarleton. His regulars and his Highlanders, those are those from the, if I remember correctly, the Scottish, on the right. Yeah, I guess it really depends on which right you're talking about. But they right flank, so Continental right flank, the British right flank. There you go. That's how you do it. So this is, he has a mixture of trained forces, loyalists, militia, and Tarleton's cavalry. Now, they actually keep Tarleton's cavalry in reserve. Tarleton's got a name at this point of being pretty aggressive, overly aggressive. Cornwallis is smart enough to keep him back to make sure that things are okay, and if they're not, release Tarleton and his cavalry. Okay, open attack. Now, two flanks, two armies ready to go. The British right flank launches a fierce bayonet attack. They charged the militia. So again, these are unexperienced American militia. So what do? They see those bayonets, they panic immediately. They run. Total chaos. This does not look good for Horatio Gates. Again, he brought them in to do this. So this brings off the next phase of the battle. So the militia is basically scattered. There are still trained troops. But this is nearly like half of Gates's army, which, remember, it was 4,000 against 2,200. Okay, so now we have the Continental regulars. Now this is under another general by the name of Cobb. He fights extremely well, extremely hard in the center. Now remember, he's the center and right flank, and he holds their ground against the British forces. He does not give up any ground. So bayonets do not scare them. Fire away. Despite their effort, though, they're soon overwhelmed by the number. Because, again, the militia flees. They're part of that group. Center and right flank. The right flank was the militia. So this allows the British to encircle those that were left behind. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. It's still early morning at this point. By late morning, the American forces are completely encircled. General Cobb, he basically he's wounded and captured after a while, and he holds a very heroic defense, but because of his injuries, he dies as well. Now, General Gates abandons the battlefield. He orders a retreat. His center flank gone. It's been encircled by the British. All those men have been captured. And Horatio Gates rides over 60 miles north to Charlton. Oh, sorry, to Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, again, I showed you that. Charleston, I was thinking Charleston when I said that. Charleston is down here. This is Camden. And let's see, where is it? Okay. Let me just put in here. Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. And so he runs north to Charlotte. Okay, so Yeah, Camden, North Carolina. Or sorry, to Charlotte. This is a way for him to regroup, but he also earns the criticism of leadership. He retreated. He gave up. Now, of course, you would say, hey, you basically have to when your people are being slaughtered or being captured. Here are the numbers. Approximately 1,000 Americans were either killed or wounded. 1,000 were captured. It means he had only 2,000 left. Nearly all of Gates's artillery, wagons, and supplies were taken by the British. That's a heavy loss. Again, remember, he was put over the whole southern campaign for the Continental Army. And he really screwed up in this first battle since that point. So the British side, less than 350 were killed and wounded. So totally devastating blow, devastating defeat. At this point, Horatio Gates is disgraced. George Washington replaces him with General Nathan Greene. Now, he is amazing. Nathan Greene is the commanding officer who is all about delay, redirect, and guerrilla warfare. Much like Francis Marion, he was very well trained in the southern type of warfare that would work in the South. The British were not ready for this, but we're not going to go into that because, that's for next time. But I will bring up one more thing. Remember, this is in August. The British, at this point, I think, if I remember correctly, Benedict Arnold is down south. Oh, yeah, that's right. He was appointed after his heroing tactics. Remember the Battle of Saratoga? He disobeyed command. So instead of fighting, because people didn't trust to be able to fight him anymore, they put him over West Point. Now, West Point is a very important place for you to understand. West Point. Yeah. So this is West Point. West Point is known for a military training office. And so West Point was an American fort right offside the Hudson. And this is where a lot of the forces were being trained as well. And later on would be trained. These are like officers are being trained in this area. 1779. Arnold started having secret communications with a man by the name of British Major John Andre. So he was actually becoming disillusioned with the Continental Congress and the Continental Army. Remember, he's angry that he was put into basically a desk job, a training job, instead of being on the battlefield. Again, major ego squashed because he disobeyed orders. Now, again, he did win Saratoga, so he was at least not removed from military service. Washington put him over West Point, which was an essential place, an essential facility for the American Continental Army. So Arnold was appointed over this around August of 1780. Again, still talking to Andre. Arnold meets with him September 21st, 1780. This is right after the Southern campaign is starting to fall apart. Camden, remember, just got lost. They went up to Charleston. Knew we had General Nathaniel Greene taking over. So up in the north, they're getting word of this. And by September 21st, Arnold meets secretly with Major Andre near West Point to finalize his betrayal, to finalize all of the information. Arnold agrees to surrender West Point and its 3,000 troops. That's a lot. The British in exchange for 20,000 pounds. 20,000 pounds. 20,000 pounds? Holy cow. That was a long time ago. 20,000 pounds, over $100,000. $200,000. You can understand why he would actually oh, yeah, you're going to give me that? Yes. and a commission to be a brigadier general for the British Army? British Army is going to win. Yeah, I'm going to switch sides. I want to go with a winning side. September 23rd, 1780, up near West Point, Major Andre is captured by American militia while traveling back from the British lines. Oh, isn't with, well, that's right, with the agreement from Benedict Arnold, incriminating documents, including Arnold's betrayal, Arnold's treason. It's found in his boot. They search him. They find it in his boot. Andre's captured, exposing Arnold's plot. September 25th, 2 days later, Arnold learns of Andre's capture, and he flees West Point. He goes abroad the HMS Vulture and narrowly escapes capture from the Continental Army. 2 days. It took him 2 days to find out, and within the time, they were probably getting orders of what to do with Benedict Arnold. By that time, he runs away, gets on a ship, and sails away. Arnold formally joins the British Army and is given a commission as a brigadier general. No $20,000 though, 20,000 pounds. I mean, he lost West Point because Andre himself. But he has to side with the British now because everyone knew now he was a traitor. So whenever someone says, don't be a Benedict Arnold, it means don't be a traitor. Don't cause treason. So Arnold formally joins the British Army and he begins to fight against the Patriots in Virginia and Connecticut. Those are the two places that he's put in command of, in charge of. So again, two very separate places. Connecticut doesn't turn out very well. So he goes down to Virginia. And we're going to get back to him Wednesday, when we talk about the Southern Command. More on the Southern Command. So thank you so much for joining me on this great Adventure Box day. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got a lot of information. So we have the North a little bit under control from the Continental Army. The South is falling out of control with the Continental Army. The British are gaining strength down there because of some really bad choices. The hero of Saratoga has now fallen. Whether it was ego, whether it's just bad judgment, or whether it is just luck, who knows? But now that that happened, Benedict Arnold switches sides. Finding out about his betrayal, total morale drop for the Continental Army. But they did not get West Point, which increases the morale a little bit. Yeah, they were able to hold them up. And who did it? Thank you, militia. You caught Major Andre, and he was captured. Benedict Arnold was not able to be captured. Not yet. So stay tuned for for this Wednesday to find out what happens to Andre, what happens to Benedict Arnold, and what happens to, well, I was going to say Tarleton, but the rest of the Southern campaign. We're finishing up the American Revolution on Wednesday. So stick with us. Can't wait to talk to you later. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.